All right. So, we are live. Now, the agenda for today's is live, so I think I'm actually getting used to this format. Instead of recording and then actually publishing the videos afterwards, I'd rather just do the live and then leave it there because I'm not necessarily in the I'm not super excited about like editing videos right now, so it's a much better format because once you just once you finish the live stream, it's gonna be there on YouTube. So without actually having to do any sort of editing and all that stuff, I might want to do some editing afterwards, but I'll probably not. So in this live stream today, so there's only one viewer right now. Let me know if you can hear me well by replying here in the chats. The agenda for today is that I want to finish up with the pile paper, which I've started in a previous live stream, and the link to that live stream is in the description. And once I finish with the pile paper, which is quite abstract and easy to understand, sort of, then we'll probably go a little bit and do some small experiments here in the playground of GPT-3. Now, to get a better idea, when we talk about the pile paper, we talk about a product from Eleuther AI. And I've discussed this in the previous live stream. And when we talk about GPT-3, we talk about OpenAI. Okay, alright. Now, we start with the paper. So as we've seen previously, this is and in my view, one of the best, if not the best, the best curated 800 gigabyte data set that can be used to actually train language models. And while I say it's well curated, see of the distribution of sources or of data sets here. We have academic sources, PubMed, Archive, Freelaw, US Patent, PMA, Phil, and NIH. Then we have some sort of internet. Then we have prose, PG19, BC2. I think this is book corpus 2 and bibliotic. And then we also have miscellaneous, so GitHub, DMF, subtitles, IRC, EP, and Hacker News and YouTube, I guess. And we've gone through these in the previous live stream. We've seen how the distribution is when it comes to the data sets, how each of them are trained, like what is the weight of each of them in the overall distribution in the pile. So we have the raw size and the effective size. Basically, the effective size is the raw size times the epochs has been trained. So for example, you can see that pile CC, common crawl, a pile version of the common crawl is only trained like it's only been used once in an epoch, while for example we have the Wikipedia, which is like ran 3 times per epoch, so it weighs more when it comes to training, so it has a stronger word to say, which is really good in my view. And we've gone through each of these up until I believe it was the Freelaw. This is where we stopped. Now the Freelaw, in this case we have a data set with legal proceedings, bibliographic information on judges, And they focus on court opinions because of an abundance of full text entries, which is really good. We also have the Stack Exchange here. Now I'll be reminding you that you can leave questions or ask questions, whatever they may be here, and interact with me in the live chats. Like so, the live chat is up and running. If someone, this channel is really small. My other channel, I've decided to actually do these live streams on this channel because I want to focus more on machine learning stuff on this channel and on scientific papers. I want to start small. Like right now, there's like 100 subscribers or so. So there's very few people watching these live streams, but that's no problem because these are actually going to be seen or going to be found afterwards by other people. And yeah, it's going to provide hopefully some sort of value in the future, not necessarily in the present moment as I'm actually doing them. Okay, now back to the data set. So we have Stack Exchange, popular collection of websites around user contributed question and answers. So this is going to add a lot of good stuff to the question and answer aspect of a machine learning algorithm. So for example, if you would train GPT-3 on Stack Exchange, you'd actually be able to leverage a task oriented towards question and answer because you would have the Stack Exchange, which comprises of pairs of questions and answers, covering a wide range of subjects from programming to gardening to religion. So they've included this in the hopes that it will improve the question answering capabilities of downstream models on diverse domains. Now we also have the US Patent Office, I believe. Patent and Trademark Office. Of course, we have the Wikipedia, which in my view is a very invaluable source of high quality data, and in their opinion as well. Then of course we have PubMed Abstracts, which is another very high quality source of information when it comes to medical insight, and I'm actually interested in this kind of stuff. So we have the PubMed Abstracts and we also have Archive Abstracts, and these two I believe, so none of these are included in the data that, for example, GPT-3 has been actually trained on, which is a bad thing, and hopefully the folks at OpenAI are actually gonna do something about it in future iterations, even though some people say that it might not necessarily be important to have the language model trained on very recent data if you know how to engineer the prompt. And I'm actually investigating those statements as we speak, as I read insights from Guerns's website. Over here, we're talking about prompt engineering, so I highly recommend reading Guern.net if you want to better understand language models. Going back, so there is a lot of potential insight when it comes to PubMed Abstracts. And then of course we have the project Gutenberg, which is comprised of classic Western literature. It doesn't actually say how many books it comprises. So PG-19 consists of Project Gutenberg books from before 1919. But I think they also have the book corpus and books 3. Then you have open subtitles, and I think this is good for dialogue, as they say here, provide an important source of natural dialogue, as well as understanding of fictional formats other than prose, which may provide useful for creative writing generation tasks. So this is actually really good when it comes to fiction, generating fiction, and I think language models have mostly been used so far to generate. I mean, have very extensively been used so far for generating fiction. I've been using myself both GPT Neo and GPT-3 today. Like the most recent one was today when I generated, when I used GPT-3, for example, in my Substack to generate a short nonfiction essay on how AI will revolutionize the world in the near future. And what I did, I actually gave this to GPT-3, played a little bit with some of the parameters over here, like I've changed the parameters, I've changed the engine. I've also given some sort of an outline, and then GPT-3 came up with all of these, and these are very coherent. So it's like this is gonna happen. Highly recommend you read this. And even though it might, in my view, it might be a little bit surface level, if I'm going to prompt GPT-3 to be even more specific, I think that I can get far better insight. Like, for example, instead of saying here AI in healthcare, I could simply say AI and CRISPR-Cas9 genome engineering, and then see what GPT-3 will come up with. And I'm actually gonna do this in the near future. But in any case, it would be awesome if we could use or leverage the pile dataset for this sort of task, because the pile has data coming from 2020, unlike GPT-3, which has data coming from 2019. Okay, then we have subtitles, which is also good for dialogue. Then we have fill papers, philosophy publications, NIH abstracts, examples of high quality scientific writing. I think that's something that GPT-3 lacks. Then, of course, we have Hacker News and Enron emails. Interesting. Then they go on and describe benchmarking language models with the pile. This is, I mean, if you're really interested in the technical details, but I didn't actually focus on this while going through the paper. And they make an assumption here. While the sizes of GPT-3 models on the Open API have not been publicized, they assume that Ada, Babbage, Curie, and Da Vinci correspond to 2.7, 6.7, 30 billion, and 175 parameters, respectively. So in this case, Ada, with 2.7 billion parameters, would be compared with Eleuther AI's GPT Neo 2.7. This one with 2.7 billion parameters. GPT-3 Ada. Interesting. Let's go to Hugging Faces and see if they have anything. If they added anything else. So yeah, the three models, the 2.7, the 1.3 billion, and the 125 million. So nothing new here. Okay. Proceed. Shall we? So, component-wise performance, I've kind of skipped this one. Evaluation, methodology, I didn't actually focus too much on this one. Here they have perplexity tests for GPT-2 and GPT-3. I think they had some sort of access to GPT-3, and they described this somewhere in the paper. And then the results. Here they talk about tokenization. Now, very interesting is that GPT-3 is mostly English. I think it's 97% English, while this one, the pile, what do they say? So the pile is 97%, 97.4% English. Even though both of them are like almost 100% English, if you just prompt GPT-3, for example, if you say to GPT-3 English, what's the average size of a banana? And then you say Spanish. I actually know the translation in Spanish. Well, let's see what we get if we set the temperature lower and the response length to 30 tokens, and we have the DaVinci Instruct Beta, which should actually better understand our request with fewer prompts, with fewer shots, as they say. Let's see what we get. ¿Cuál es el tamaño promedio de una banana? So, you see, it's like, this is amazing. I mean, you can just, it's actually perfectly grammatically correct. What if we say Romanian? Ce este dimensiunea medie a bananei? This is not 100% grammatically correct. What if we say, and we only need like maybe 15 tokens, what is the average length of a banana? So this is like 93% grammatically correct, which is really good. What if we do Russian? Doesn't do Russian. Can we translate this back to English? What if we do like a temperature? Let's do 30, temperature 0.3, and then let's feed this into translate. As you can see, you don't get like the highest quality of translations, but What if we use what if we use DaVinci? See, maybe we can get something else. Take this, put it into Google Translate. How much is the average length of the fruit? Which is better? So, and the DaVinci is the most powerful and probably the most expensive engine of GPT-3. So yeah, I mean, you don't even, this is zero-shot learning. This is not even few-shot learning. Maybe one-shot learning, because you're saying, I mean, is this zero-shot or one-shot? I think it's debatable. In any case, let's finish with the pile and then we'll play a little bit more in the playground. Let's see how many minutes are we in. 24 minutes. Wow, time flies when you're having so much fun. Now, investigating and documenting the data sets. This is how they describe. This is where they describe how they actually worked with each of the data sets, with each of these data sets. And I think they also provide insight, and of course they talk about pejorative content like profanity checker. They talk about bias when it comes to gender, religion, and politics, I guess, which is really important, but I'm not going to go into it. But they do go into it because this is really important. So this is actually going to be one of the most so for future data sets that are going to be used to build or to train language models, this sort of thing is going to be really important, because those who design the data sets will have to sort of conform to making the data set as least prone to bias when it comes to after being used by a language model in training, because you wouldn't want to have some sources of information that would incline your language model towards bias with respect to a certain issue like or aspect like religion, gender, politics, and other sorts of biases. So ethics, this sort of ethical aspect of designing a data set is, and it's going to be even more important in the future, and I'm not really sure how much effort the team at OpenAI has put in training or in the data sets that have been used for training the GPT-3. Now, I think that the next iteration of GPT is probably going to be extremely amazing, because right now with 175 billion parameters and in my view a lower quality data set, you get this amazing stuff like as you can see here. What happens when you train a GPT, and they're probably the next GPT is going to be maybe another order of magnitude higher when it comes to parameters, because we know that Google has published a paper. They haven't released the model, or they haven't released like public data, but they've talked about a model which they call the switch transformer, and that one has 1.7 or 1.3 trillion parameters, which is an order of magnitude bigger than GPT-3. So probably GPT-4, if that's the next iteration of GPT, is going to have at least a couple of times more parameters unless they find a different way of optimizing for performance rather than scaling parameters. But I think they're probably going to scale parameters, so we're going to have many more parameters, and hopefully they're going to have a well curated data set. And I've actually opened myself to collaboration with the folks at OpenAI, and we'll see if someone actually considers my message, because I'm really interested in providing good data to the language model, because it's going to be in the best interest of everyone. I mean, it's going to be in their best interest because they can make a lot of money from it, and it's going to be the best interest for researchers because they will have higher quality data to work with. It's going to be the best interest for businesses because they will have higher quality data to get insight from. And it's going to be in the best interest of anyone. So it's a win-win-win situation when it comes to having a higher quality data set. So yeah, OpenAI has to up their game faster when it comes to the next model and the data set that's going to be trained on. Because right now, GPT-3, as they say, if we go to the Wikipedia and look into the sources, we see that it's been trained on like five data sets. So 60% of the weight is a filtered version of Common Crawl. This is web data. I mean, it's valuable, it's filtered, but it's just web data. And it's 60% of it. Come on. And then you have 90 billion, which is like 20 times less than that. Comes from web to text. 8% comes from books 1. 8% comes from books 2. And 3% comes from Wikipedia. Come on. So this is, with this level of quality, if with this level of quality you get the amazing results that you get on GPT-3 175 billion parameters, what happens when you have 175 billion parameters trained on this high quality of data? I keep asking this question. I keep freaking asking this question. Okay, now let's actually finish with the paper. Now they talk about consent here, implications and broader impact, legality of content. So I haven't focused too much on these while reading. This is something to think of. Due to human competition, curiosity, and cultural diversity, halting technological development is incredibly difficult, if not impossible. Well, yeah, that's correct. Think of the case with CRISPR-Cas9 babies from 2018. While the entire world sort of like agreed on the fact that scientists should not edit babies or embryos, there was a research scientist in China who actually genome engineered embryos to create two beautiful twins which have been born in 2019, who supposedly are HIV resistant because of the genomic engineering the scientist has done using CRISPR-Cas9. So I don't know, I mean, I know that even though there is a consensus in the research community to actually do not use genome engineering CRISPR-Cas9 on humans, there are people who actually do this themselves, because you need some. I mean, you can get the equipment you need and you can build your lab at home. And I don't want to discuss about this, but you can do genome engineering on yourself. So, um, yeah, it's a whole another level of discussion. With this in mind, we accept the reality that the pile could potentially accelerate AI timelines. Okay, let that sink in. Now, for instance, GPT was trained on Wikipedia and book corpus, whereas GPT-3 was trained on Wikipedia, 2 fiction datasets, and 2 web scrape datasets. I guess, I mean, they kind of deride. They kind of deride the fact that GPT-3 has been trained using Wikipedia, 2 fiction datasets, and 2 web scrape datasets compared to this humongous high quality thing. And still, GPT-3 provides like amazing performance as of right now. Where were we? These are the appendices. We were here. Acknowledgements, and there's like 20 pages of appendices. Here are all the contributors. And you can find these fellas on the Discord Eleuther AI web server. I'm not sure if I have it open here. I don't think I have it open. So we're 35 minutes in. Okay. And here they discuss each dataset in detail, explaining how they pre-processed it, which is really valuable information. So description for all of them. Their version of book corpus contains 17,000 books. And when it comes to PubMed extracts, we have 50 million ones. Imagine how much insight you can derive from this data alone. And they use the 2020 version of Wikipedia, which is like much more recent to the one that GPT-3 has been trained on. And when it comes to Hacker News, the most recent data they had in the pile is of September, which is really good. Again, I only have like good words for the pile, and hopefully people who train language models at scale, who have the financial means to actually do that, like the folks on OpenAI, are actually going to take this into consideration. Talking about deduplication, how many tokens per each byte with respect to each of the data sets, which is insightful information when it comes to training a model. Again, perplexity, benchmarks. I mean, I think we could spend like 10 live streams to get into each of these sections, but it kind of beats the purpose. I just want to go through the pile at a higher level and actually point out the fact that this is a well-curated data set that should be used at least in the near future to train language models and to give us the pre-trained weights or give us some sort of an API to interact with it. Now here are some samples from each of the data sets. Like from the archive one, I think we have some abstracts. From GitHub we have codes. PubMed extracts, abstracts, Wikipedia. Now this is probably LaTeX or not. We even have IRC data. Now here's some sort of a bias, I guess. More bias when it comes to religion. Sentiment co-occurrence. Perplexity test performance. We have more on biases. Topics here, and that's all. A 39-page well-explained paper that I highly recommend anyone interested in the field of natural language processing to read. Now my next one is probably going to be, my next review is going to be on the zero-shot learning by generating task-specific adapters, and this is a 2021 paper. The pilot paper is also a 2021 paper, which is January 1st. I think that's when it was published. This one is January 2nd. So we'll be looking into this, and we'll probably be looking into this book, which has been recommended by a fellow YouTuber who has a YouTube channel on mathematics, and in this case he talked about this book, all the mathematics you missed, and we have a really good contents. We're probably gonna go through it in a future video. So we have this one, all the mathematics you missed, and also Math for Machine Learning by Mark Peter. I think you can find this. I think this is free officially on Mark Peters' website, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Okay, so we are 42 minutes in. Let's do a few more minutes. And in the meantime, I'm actually going to, so I said that we're going to discuss a little bit about the playground here. Let's actually familiarize ourselves with the playground. So when you start the playground, you actually have a blank slate here. You can enter your text. Like, for example, describe the physical aspect of an apple, and you can select the engine, and in this case I'm going to select instruct beta because it better understands uh, the prompt without actually having to give it more context. So instead of, let's say, physical aspect, let's say visual aspect of an apple, and then this, let's give it 100 words. We'll set a temperature to let's do 0.3. So they actually say that you shouldn't, even though both temperature and top P actually control diversity and randomness, you should only toggle one of them at once. So we'll leave top P at 1 and we'll set temperature to 0.3. In this case, lowering results in less random completions. As the temperature approaches 0, the model will become deterministic and repetitive. Okay, so it kind of approaches to 0, but in this case we could set the frequency penalty higher so the model does not become repetitive. But let's see what we get with these settings. So you have the engine where you select the engines, and I think I've shown the pricing. So the most powerful is 6 cents per 1,000 tokens. Da Vinci, then you have Curie, which is 10 times less expensive than Da Vinci. Then you have Babbage, which is 5 times less expensive than Curie and 50 times less expensive than Da Vinci. And then you have Ada, which is the fastest, probably less reliable when it comes to performance. And this is actually like 70 times, 75 times less expensive than Da Vinci. So if we do a calculation here, 0.06 to 0.0008, I said 75. That's right. So my math doesn't betray me just as yet. So Ada is 75 times less expensive than Da Vinci, and I'm not sure in terms of performance how much less it performs. But we'll actually look more into the pricing in a future live stream. Okay, so describe the visual aspect of an apple. So this is short and sweet. What if we do the Da Vinci? Redo this one. Yeah, so it actually fills, it kind of feels the need to fill in with more stuff. Now if we do Curie instruct beta, repeat this. The visual aspect of an apple is a round green fruit with a stem and a large red juicy and crunchy exterior. Now that's interesting. If we do the temperature higher, let's do 0.7, we do not manipulate other parameters here, and we repeat this. Apples have a good visual aspect because they are colorful. Now notice the grammar aspect of it. So I have Grammarly here, and it doesn't throw any red flags. Apples have a good visual aspect because they are colorful and have a lot of different shades of brown. I'm not extremely sure if that's correct, but I think you can find apples of different colors. The skin is also a different color, so it's easy to distinguish the skin from the rest of the apple. Whatever. Let's actually say the top 10 cyber threats. The top 10 cyber threats, the top 10 cybersecurity vulnerabilities of a website. Let's actually set the temperature lower here. And leave the instruct beta engine on. So we have SQL injection, cross-site scripting, broken authentication, broken encryption, access control, session management. So we see a repetition here. Broken encryption, broken access control, another repetition, broken authentication, another repetition. All right. Now, what if we do the same thing with DaVinci instruct beta? But before that, let's do with the query, because query is not optimized for precise instructions. Like, it's not optimized for like fewer shot learning than the instruct is, presumably. And then repeat this. We can see some of the same thing with repetitions. Now, what if we do DaVinci instruct beta and we penalize the model for repetition with 0.7? We should see fewer repetitions in this case. What do you know? XSS, SQL injection, buffer overflow, directory traversal, insecure direct object reference, so this is IDOR, insecure deserialization, insufficient transport layer protection, input validation, cross-site request forgery, unvalidated redirects and forwards. Wow, so this is freaking mind-boggling. Okay, so I should probably stop here and maybe look into the playground more in the next live stream, and with some more of these presets. Maybe we'll look into the more examples that are provided here in the ever-growing list of examples. And these are actually different prompts, English to French. This is a translator similar to what we've done. We have the setting parameters, classification, we have the prompt, tweet classifier, factual answering. This is something that I'm really interested in. And it also gives you the API requests in Python, curl. Okay, we'll go through these in future live streams. Alright, signing off for today.